Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Coach Parker with CoachParker.org. Today we're going to go over installing the 6-2 Multi-8 Youth Football Defense. This is part 2 of that series. We're going to get back into it. If you haven't seen the first part, please hit the link in the description below and we'll set up a playlist for the series so you can keep watching those. Also, if you'll subscribe to the channel, YouTube likes that. It helps me in the search results. Also, if you get a chance, just hit the notify button, and that'll just send you an email when I post a video. I post a video maybe once a week, 3 or 4 times a month. During football season, so not that much, and it won't probably interrupt you too much. So we were talking about installing a youth football defense, specifically my defensive playbook, the 6-2 Multi-8 Youth Football Defense, which is for sale over at CoachParker.org. But the install, really, you could install any defense kind of like this process. In the first series, I talked about all the preseason planning before, the first practice, before you see your final roster. Now, this is, we have kind of seen rosters, and we're going to look at a competition and kind of decide what we're going to do for the first day of practice. And like I said in the last video, I was going to take 5 different team rosters that I've coached over the last 25 seasons or so and go through the process and talk about kind of how I decided on the defense schemes for each of these teams. And hopefully this doesn't get too long. I've named the teams, renamed the teams different, but we can go through these and look at kind of what I've done here. So let's go through it. So there's 5 different, like I said, 5 different team rosters. The first team might be like you. It's called the Colts. It was a 7-8U team. It was a brand new team, inexperienced team. We've never coached that team. We just got through coaching a senior team. Those guys graduated. We went back down and picked up this particular team that we had to totally draft from scratch. There had already been 2 seasons in the league, 5 and 6-year-olds that had played together. A couple of those teams, I think it's a 6-team division, were coming back. And they were the 2 top teams in the division. And so all the players to this team were new. Now, some of them had played 1 season, maybe 2, if any. So this is really a young team, very inexperienced. There were 15 players on the roster and definitely 2 minimum play players that really didn't really want to be out at football very much, at least not at that point. So that's the Colts team. That might be like you. We did lose to the 2 top teams that season, and because they reseeded right before the playoffs, which they had never done, we actually should have been in the Super Bowl. So you can tell that still kind of hurts, but that's okay. We almost beat both of those teams during the regular season. I think we were within 6 points of each of those games. The Super Bowl winning team during the regular season, we had actually beat them because we had to play them twice. So we lost the first one by a fluke kickoff return by a lineman who picked it up and ran for 60 yards. But anyway, so that's the 7 and 8-year-old team. Inexperienced team, right new, had to draft, didn't know any of the players, just got there. The second team, Golden Eagles, was a 9-10U team. It was a playoff team that came back, but that team had just been formed. The league gave me that team in the B division. There were 22 kids on that roster, which were a lot. 6 MPPs. It was a recreational kind of select league. We were able to each season pick up a couple of kids and not get the roster over 25. And if you were keeping kids and nobody left, they would allow you to go pick up a couple of kids based on some algorithm they used. So we were able to do that, and we were able to replace a couple of kids. But the base of that team was given to me by the league, and this is the second season of that team. And it was a playoff team and lost to the winner of the Super Bowl that season, and had done that the previous season before from a huge comeback. But that particular year, I think we only lost two games that season. The next team is a 10-11U team, the Buffaloes, and that was basically a team we had together for about 4 seasons to 5 seasons already. It already won, I think, 2 Super Bowls handily. We had kept 6 players. In this league, we can only keep 6 players that can return up to 6 players. So we had kept the 6 studs. And almost every guy that we drafted through the draft had played 1 season or more. So there were no rookies on the team, although there was a roster of 17. There were 3 minimum play players based on the talent of this specific team. So that was that of the Buffaloes. And you can see it's age group related here. Then there was another team, Wildcats, which was another Super Bowl team that had been together for several seasons. This team actually went to the Super Bowl. They lost against a passing team on an extra point. It was a heavily experienced team. Almost every player had 2 seasons or more. There were 3 MPPs on that team. That was a roster size of 19. And then, so the first 4 there were really competitive recreational leagues. The Golden Eagles was the only one that you kept your roster together. The 3 others you had to redraft, except for maybe the 0 to 6 kids you kept. And of the 2 of the 3, we kept 6, and the first one we had to draft completely from new. So that gives you an idea of where you are in that spectrum there. The last team, the Vandals, was a 12U select team. That team had been together for about 6 years. I think most of those had played together for 4. I was a new coach to that team that got brought in to coach the defense and solidify that. We did get into the playoffs and lost to the Super Bowl winning team, who was coached by an ex-Dallas Cowboy. This was in a very high-end DFW select league. That roster was 17. There were no MPP players, and I could play. I didn't have any minimum play issues. There were some political issues that I had to deal with, but that was a select team. So you've got a range there of teams that have been together, and then right off the Colts team was a newly formed team there, and each of those teams. Our goal is always. I mean, whenever we sorry about that. Our goal is always to get to the playoffs. And the majority, unless you're just the total bomb-run team, you won't get to the playoffs in most of these leagues we play in. And we definitely want to win our first playoff game, which each of these teams did win their first playoff game. So that's always good. So, like we said in the last video, I go through these rosters, and I've actually got these rosters kind of pulled out here so we can look at them just by positions in a rating system, so you can kind of look at that, and then we can talk about what defense I wound up picking from there. The other thing is I look at competition. We talked about that. So I've got the roster now, and I'm looking at the competition. I already probably know this before the season when I go to the planning, what the competition and the coaches are going to be in there. So the Colts was a new team to that division. We knew the two top teams. We knew most of the other coaches through conversations and stuff. The one thing that we did do, and this is what you guys should do, we try to get in 3 scrimmages before the first game, and we try to scrimmage the top teams and we film those, and that really helps us understand where we're going to go the regular season. So if you're able to do that, I highly recommend that. Our league also films games, and we can buy that package. I recommend that if your league does that. And if you're not scouting and filming your games, you should start doing that. The other team, the Golden Eagles, we were in that league. We were coming back. We knew all the teams. We had film and pictures and everything on all those teams. That was an 8-deal league. The Colts was a 6-team league. So we were good. There was one new team that came in that was from the A division that dropped to B, and we knew who they were, and so that was that. The Buffaloes, that was another team that returned. We were in the same league there. We knew everybody. We knew the competition. We had film on everybody. We actually had rosters from the last couple of seasons because we would get those and see those. And we would, again, scrimmage the top teams in our preseason scrimmages, and we would film those. So that's a big thing to do. The Wildcat team, once again, that team had been together for 3 or 4 seasons. That was returning Super Bowl team. Knew all the competition again. We scrimmaged all the top teams. We filmed it. We knew all that. So we're knowing all of, are they a passing team? Did they get better at passing? Are they heavy running? What formations they are running? The Vandals, a select team. I was new to that team in that particular league, but that was a returning playoff team. The head coach had been in that league forever, so we had good intel on the competition. We had past game films. Deion Sanders' teams, Truth, were coming into that league, so we knew those were going to be stacked, and they were definitely stacked. We knew there was a South Lake team that was coached by an ex-Dallas Cowboy. His team was the Super Bowl champ and was stacked, and he was. And we scrimmaged that Dallas ex-Cowboy coach team twice during the season and had film on them, knew what they were going to do. I mean, that team was just so talented. There were many ex-Cowboy sons on that team, and so that was just a totally stacked team, and you're going to do what you could to win that particular game. So those are the teams, and we knew the competition. So I've got all that, and then we get to the rosters, and so here we go. So I've got 2 DNs from the roster that I definitely know are going to be really pretty good based on the talent that we drafted. I know the linebackers, they'd played before, so I know from talking to their coaches they were good. I had 2 tackles that were okay, really good corner. We had coached the kid's older brother. The free safety was good. We knew his older brother. Corner was okay. We had an MPP basically at our nose guard, inside linebacker, which is one of our A gaps. I call him Gunner. And then our nose guard, which is the knob. And I've got names for all these. They're coded names for my defense. He was a 4 out of 5. He was a really big nose guard and did really well. And then we had some subs. We had an office-only sub, we had a cornerback, and we had rookies. So I had a lot of MPP guys because the offensive coach didn't really want too many rookies and MPP on the offense because that takes so long to get started. So he had one that was a wide receiver, and then I took and worked in the A-gaps and the cornerbacks into the defense. And we did pretty well. We lost 2 regular season games out of 6, and we lost our second playoff game. I think we went 6-3 or 7-3 or something like that. And the only, and the losses were by less than 6 points each, and we were only giving up maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns a game. I think we gave up 3 maybe one game. But for a brand new team doing as well, and the only 2 teams that got us were the 2 teams that had experience and that had been together for 2 seasons already, and they knew the league, we were pretty happy about where we were at with that. And so I got the roster, and of course, we start talking about, okay, we got a lot of good really light players and skill players. I had a lot of running back kind of guys and cornerbacky guys. And so, but I also had a lot of rookies. And so we went with the 6'2" wide tackle to start out with and wound up moving, and the tight tackle kind of goes with that because we just move in and out. And I'll show you that in a minute. But we wound up playing a lot of this 6'3" hybrid, which we would go 6'3" wide tackle and a 6'3" tight tackle. And we would run that because basically when you go to 6'3", that free safety comes down. He would basically become this monster back, and we would go into gap 8 at certain points of the time. Now, I didn't put all 4 of these in the first week, but this is what we did over the season, and we'll talk about the first day here in a minute as we get through all these rosters. But the first, so the first week we'll talk about in a minute, or the first day. But we did a lot of stacked blitzes off the D tackles and D guards, and a lot of blitzes with our monster free safety that we would move him outside to wide side, or if they were stacked to one side. So we did a lot of that. Blitzing, can get you in trouble. So we didn't do just a ton where everybody would blitz, but we did do very specific blitzes when we would see something. I always do like with the A-gappers, if I have a big A-gapper and a small A-gapper, I do what's called a golf tee, where the big guy will be the nose, and then I'll stack the little guy behind him instead of having 2 A-gappers. And a lot of times that stack will confuse the guards in the center, so that's one thing you can do there. But that's kind of what we did, and I'll tell you, the first week we just installed the 6'2" wide tackle, and then we kind of moved from there. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the Golden Eagles, this team was back in 2007. There were 22 or 24 kids on this roster. It was a lot of kids. We wound up platooning on offense and defense, and you can see all that. But we had been together before. We had gotten a couple of recruits. And so we were really, really good in our starting defense. Pretty darn solid. And so we were pretty happy with that. This team wound up doing the 6'2" wide tackle, tight tackle, gap 8, and we did run some 5'2" and 5'3" kind of monster stuff. We did a ton of bomber and cobra blitzes by the linebackers, and a lot of outside corner blitzes. When they would short side us or something, we knew there was something going on. We could blitz the backside. And even front side, we would set up. If we knew a team was going to sweep, we had a whole front side kind of thing that we would do. So that was that team. So we did stick with the 6'2" wide tackle there to start out with. The Buffaloes, this was this was a Super Bowl returning team. I think this team in 3 seasons have won 2 Super Bowls. This was a stacked team. It was just crazy stacked. We had lost our quarterback that year and a linebacker. but our Mike linebacker with probably a 10. I mean, it's not we're rating by 5. He was probably a 10. I mean, it was crazy. And so we started out on the 6'2" wide tackle just to start out, but we wound up going to the 70 umbrella and 70 diamond because we had a Mike linebacker and a huge nose guard, and all our D-backs were amazing. So we could rush really well and then cover any breakout by our 4 D-backs back there. And that worked out well for us, especially because the league was mostly run. There was nobody really passing, and the third top team in the league was a big passing team, and we pick-sixed him and intercepted a couple of other balls in the game that we played them a regular season out of the 70. So the 70 is really good at the youth level if they're not going to pass, and you've got the players to do that. So that was that. The Wildcats, this is a team that had been together since like they were 6 years old. And so they've been playing together for 4 years. It was pretty stacked, and the starting defense was tons of crazy. We started out in the 6'2" wide tackle, the tight tackle, and the gap 8. And because one of the big teams that we had scrimmaged, a friend of mine had come in and started running the offense for this team, they put in a spread. And so we started running some 61 air or 4-3, it's whatever you want to call it there, and we ran a 5-2, 5-1 monster kind of thing, specifically for that opponent, because he had some spread passing stuff that he came out with. But once again, we were doing a lot of stack blitzes off the D tackles and nose guards there. But we decided to go with the 6'2" wide tackle the first week there. The Vandals, this was the select team, highly stacked, but the corners were definitely weak compared to the 2 top teams, with some ungodly, I think, Dallas Cowboys sons that were running receivers for the Super Bowl team. So I even though I give them 3 out of 5, it was probably because some competition in that particular league was crazy. And then again, we were running 6'2" wide tackle, tight tackle, gap 8, and we had to basically also, because of a couple of spread teams, run into a 6'1" air, 4-3, 5-2 monster kind of thing to deal with those passing teams. We did a ton of blitzing off the D tackles, nose guards, and cornerbacks, and tried to make that work there. So that's where we were at with those teams. And in case you haven't seen the defenses, here's the 6'2" wide tackle. Here's the 6'3" hybrid. You can see Fred has just come down. So Fred comes down. 70 umbrella. There we go. 6'2" tight tackle. You see the linebackers move outside, then tackles move inside. Gap 8, basically the linebackers just step up into the C gaps there. 5'2" monster, basically the gunner comes out. The 3 down linemen head up on their guys. Of course, I've got that tackle off. He should be head up on that tackle. There we go. And you can see, and then the rover backs up into a safety position, or I'll have him do a monster kind of blitz. So those are those main defenses. I don't think I put the 6'1" air in, but in the 6'1" air, basically the rover would come back and Mike just steps over, and there that is. And to get into a 4-3, you just back up these guys, and so that's real easy. That's the one thing about the 6'2" wide tackle that is just so easy to do, is you can see how I did that real quick, is you can back into, so here you are in a 6'2" wide tackle. If I wanted to go into a 4-3 really quick, just boom here, move this guy in and then drop these guys back. And then I've got kind of a 4-3, and you'd probably do that if that was a spread. So that's what you got there. So, and that's all explained in my book, actually. You're going, what the heck is going on here? But that's the defenses. And those are against an I. It's kind of like the 6'2" wide tackle is the I for me. I like to teach the offensive holes and back numbering out of an I formation. And the 6'2" wide tackle is kind of like my base defense that I'll teach positions and how everything, because really how I back out into other schemes, either a 70 or a 4-3 or 5-2, is really coming out of the 6'2" wide tackle kind of numbers and gaps and position names that I use. And so you can see how I got to the rosters and where they're at. We'll talk about these more as we get into part 3 and 4 as week goes along, about how we get into after the first day, the first week, the first month for scrimmages. But here's the first week, and everybody's worried about this first practice. So you can see, okay, so in part 1, I talked about, okay, what does the roster is going to look like before I get it? What do I need? Then we talk about what's the competition going to kind of look like. And then now I've got my roster. I kind of know where these guys are, where I think they're going to be, and what they're going to look like. Because maybe I've got too many D-back kind of guys and linebackers and not enough linemen. The skill guys are more experienced, or maybe my linemen are more experienced. So I kind of get all that wrapped up, and I'm looking at that, saying, okay, so really this first week for me, this first practice, even though I may evolve into the 70, as I talk about the defense in the first practice, unless it's a 5, 6, and 7-year-old team that's like rec and they've never played before, I may line up in a 6'3" or a 70 and leave it there, okay? For those age groups, 5, 6, definitely. 7-year-olds, I may start out with a 6'2" wide tackle, but 5 and 6, I probably are going to just either do a 6'3" or a 70 defense or a gap 8 and just have everybody attack heavily aggressive. So, but this is talking about, okay, so this is a 7 and 8-year-old team. It's kind of experienced, or some of them have played football, or they kind of know what's going on. So the first introduction, the first practice, we kind of do kind of a field day where we're doing 40-yard dash and everything. But we try to do in the first practice is at least get 15 to 30, 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes of offense and defense intro, just to initially introduce something. And since I've got all these videos that I've done, I'll send the video out too so people can get an idea. It helps with the parents too to get an idea of what the base defense or what we're going to run kind of look like. Some of the dads may have not run that before, and so they get an idea of what everything looks like. And so as you're in this first practice, I'm setting up, I use t-shirts or cones that have names of the offensive positions on there, both the offensive line and the backfield, and I just set up in an I formation. And then I'll set up my defense, and I'll put players kind of where I think they're going to go. But I tell everybody, don't worry, this is what's going to happen. And I put those guys in the positions, and we line those up against the cones or the T-shirts or the fireman hose or bags or whatever you're using as offensive position kind of placeholders so the guys can see. We put the defense together, and then we start talking about, here's the position alignments. These are the names of positions. And we say this is the 6'2" wide tackle. We talk about how it's a 6'2". There's 6 linemen. There's 2 linebackers. The tackles are wide. On the offensive tackles in the gap, kind of they're so wide they're inside shouldering the tight end, and we may have to talk about who the tight end and offensive positions if they're really young, but we set these guys up and we give them a quick intro. And we talk about the 6'2" wide tackle. The hand signal is that. Okay. And if they kind of get all that as you're going through it, may do the tight tackle, which is that. So that's Y, and that's tight. And then all the tight tackle is we say, okay, you wide tackles just come in tight, and the linebackers go wide. That's the four guys that kind of move. And we'll do that real quick and jump in and out, and then we'll go off, and we'll come back and line up, and we'll have a little kind of quiz about here, who's this and this. Can you line up on that? And we put people in positions, and we're talking about just the defense and nothing too much. You may only have 15 minutes, so it may not go into 30 minutes. So you're trying to get at least the intro to defense so they've got it in their heads. So when you come to the second practice, they already kind of have heard it. Especially if you've sent out a video for them to watch of you talking about the defense or me or whatever that you've sent out. The second practice, and I've got a third practice in here. On some leagues, I've had a third practice. On some leagues, I've only had two practices. Right now, for the last 5 or 6 years, I've only had two practices. So that second practice, you may just have a pre-practice clinic with your DNs, linebackers, and corners and go through how that position is played. Because the DN, linebackers, and corners, how we play are very specific. And so we'll go through that like a little 30-minute pre-practice clinic, and that may happen in the second practice, pre-practice, and the scrimmage day pre-practice. Now, if I have a third practice, there will be a skill position breakout and a general defensive review again, position responsibilities, what the 6'2" wide tackle is, and probably what the 6'2" tight tackle is. Because those are the two, unless it's for 5 and 6 year olds, that I'm probably going to move to the first scrimmage with and stay in just those two, or possibly a 6'3" maybe. I probably not getting to the 70 yet because I don't know exactly the players and I haven't seen them particular yet. So, there could be 3 alignments in the scrimmage, but most likely it's just the 6'2" wide tackle. And I'm just setting up these quick reviews to get to that practice scrimmage, and we try to have one the first week. And in that practice scrimmage, it's about 2.5 hours. We'll have a half hour of 15 minutes offense, 15 minutes defense, setting the body up. I will have platoon 3 to 4 different like black, white, blue, green kind of teams where they're all moving in positions. Because really what we're trying to use scrimmages for, especially on defense, is seeing where everybody plays and how they play the best. I don't want to win this. I mean, it's nice to win a scrimmage, but I'm really trying to see, especially in this first scrimmage for defense, who's aggressive, who can tackle, who understands the position we've put them in, and who has a nose for the football. We're probably not blitzing this first scrimmage because that's usually, we're not going to blitz probably until the last scrimmage because we don't want to get any offensive quarterbacks killed, and I know I don't like to do that to a quarterback yet. So I'm really looking for kids that have a nose for the football and can tackle. And who's a playmaker? Did anybody get a fumble? Did anybody intercept a pass? I'm really, in this practice scrimmage, we talked to a lot of our coaches in the league know that our scrimmages our highly heavy position coach scrimmage, so that we try to have a coach for each of the main positions. So there's a DN guy. I usually take DNs. Then there's a linebacker person, a DB person, and a D lineman person. We're filming, and if we've got enough coaches or dads that have understand the defense, we'll have probably one coach for the right of those positions and one to the left. I got that opposite, but you know what I say. So almost two coaches, so one coach for each side, so they can watch. Now we're filming this also, so we can get that back, review all the film, and we're platooning in. If I've got enough, I will watch the DN, but give a DN to another coach, and then I will generally watch the whole thing and try to bump in and out. Now, to be able to do what I'm doing, you need to have had coaches meetings before to explain how all these positions work, so these assistant coaches aren't telling your players things that aren't part of your defense. That's really critical. I've had to kind of talk to a couple of coaches like, look, you might have did that in high school, but this is youth. This is how this is going to work, especially how we play our DNs. And there's a whole video on our DNs. We rush our outside contained guys on a kind of a college professional pass rush mesh point thing that we do, and it works out great. It's about 2 to 3 yards behind the deepest back at a kind of a tight angle, 2 to 3 yards outside the end of the man on the line of scrimmage on offense. And you hit the apex of the sweep lanes, or you run right into the quarterback, drop it back for a pass. And it's worked out great for us. And it kills a lot of teams until they kind of find out how to deal with it. So even though we're not blitzing, our DNs, which are basically outside linebackers in a 6-2 up on the line of scrimmage, we're blitzing them. It's not really a blitz, but they're just running to a mesh point pretty much every play. If the ball goes underneath them on a dive, they basically fall back under and make the tackle from behind because I want them hitting their mesh points. So that's very specific. Linebackers are going to be playing either their BC gap, whatever blitz we've told them, and DBs are going to be pretty much playing on the line at younger levels, but they'll back up at older levels and help play with the run and pass. But at younger levels, our corners are pretty much playing on the line. If it's a passing team, the free safety will be back. If not, he's coming up into that 6-3 hybrid kind of thing. The D linemen are playing gap. We don't play head up until we go into a 5-2. So we're a penetrating defense, and we have lanes. The D tackle is trying to hit the front foot of a fullback and an eye. A gapper is trying to hit the backside of the heel of the quarterback. And then our DNs are trying to hit 2 to 3 yards behind a tailback. And they all come together, they're sitting in a line. So and so that's the first kind of week. I mean, the first practice is really the intro of the 6'2" wide tackle. If I have time, I may talk about the tight tackle. Second practice is just quickly review the alignments and then talk about position responsibilities. If I've got a third practice, I'll do a skill position breakout and then a review of defense again and team. If I don't, we'll pre-practice maybe before the second practice or before scrimmage with the DN linebackers and corners, any other skill guys I think could play there. And then we get to the practice scrimmage. We'll do a defensive review before that, 15 minutes. And then we heavy coach. Like every play is heavy coach. I mean, with my DNs, I'm over there. I'll be over there in their head telling where to line, how to align my feet, what this guy did, what to look for, and go into a whole lot of detail there. So, I hope that's a lot of information. I hope that explains to you how I kind of get through this first week install. We'll talk about some more detail in the next video, but real quickly, I've gone through the rosters, gone through the competition, and then kind of what we did, and shown you some of the quick defenses there. And so, yeah, so that's the first week, first practice. Try to get it as much as you can, and really the first week is about getting to the first scrimmage, heavy position coaching, and then seeing who's aggressive, who has a nose for the ball, who can make tackles, and who can remember what's going on, and who's a playmaker. And that's really what I'm trying to find out in the first scrimmage. And I'm doing a lot of platooning so I can find those guys, and then that's the first week. And so that second week now is I've kind of found some people, and now I'm starting to really pencil guys in on the depth chart. So future videos, I'm still going to review these rosters and defensive views, how to relate to those teams, and after this first week in scrimmage, more install details. We just went over the first day, the first week. Now we're going to talk about the second week, third week, fourth week, up until the first game, and talk about any problems areas, anything on the defense that we've got going, little kind of quirks for installing for an opponent, and some defensive drills to assist you in the install. And we'll probably talk about that main drill, which is called the Contain Pod, which is over at CoachParker.org under drills, which is kind of the heavy drill, other than the angle tackle for Seahawk stuff, that we will do to kind of train up our skill guys to understand what's going on. Hey, that's part 2 of installing the 6'2 Multi-8 Youth Football Defense, which is my defensive playbook, which is over at CoachParker.org for sale. Head over there and take a look at that. There's a ton of videos, too, on YouTube, and you can hit Coach Parker under defense and see all the 6'2 videos, how to play DN, how to play D-tackle, how to play corner. So you can get a lot of the stuff in the book through the videos, but the book really solidifies those videos, and so you can check that out. That helps support me, bring more free stuff if you get my playbook. And then also, if you get my playbook, you can email me and ask me questions. I know you've bought the book from the data, and so that's how that works. Please, again, before we're out of here, please subscribe to the channel if you get a chance. Please like the video. Don't like the video if that's what you so choose. There's probably some other videos somewhere over here, and a subscribe button there that relate to the 6'2 Multi-8 Youth Football Defense. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Once again, this is Coach Parker with CoachParker.org. Thanks for stopping by. Remember to play for fun, and winning is funner. Stay safe and stay healthy. Ciao.